Welcome to Conversations. I'm Robin Farr. We've got a great show for you today. This show is very special. Many of you have been emailing me saying, what is going on with that prescription drug abuse show that we had done? A lot of people have seen it, and a lot has occurred since then. My guest is April Rivero. She was the main purpose of the show. Her son Joey died of a prescription drug overdose, but not as in many of them, just a bad combination. And we'll revisit the story and find out what has happened with April's coalition since then. So, April, thank you so much for coming back. I know
You're
this is
welcome.
Never an easy topic, and yet it's become your reason for living, hasn't it?
It really has, I think. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a new normal, state of normal for us. So.
Exactly. For those who maybe haven't seen and don't know what we're talking about, let's tell them what happened to Joey last December, just finishing up his finals on his senior year at Arizona State University.
Right.
And celebratory, did what a lot of young people are doing. Take it from there.
Okay, well, Robin, basically Joey went to a celebration party. It was for a friend who was having a birthday celebration, turning 22, and another friend who was finished with classes. He graduated early in December, and he was headed off to a new career and opportunities in Texas, as I recall. So anyway, it was just one of those typical party nights in a college setting environment. And Joey had, about a week before that, obtained some prescription medication that was completely legal, although, as we'll discuss, it wasn't necessarily something he should have had. And so, as is typically the case, the kids were drinking that night. He took these medications, and basically he passed away in his sleep. He went to sleep and didn't wake up that night.
And I think when you hear the word overdose, you think somebody taking a handful of pills. Right. And, so I would never do that, therefore I'm safe, that's never going to happen to me or my children. But it wasn't. It was really the lethal combination.
It was. The medical examiner's final report indicated that he had low levels of Xanax, which is an anti-anxiety medication. He had moderate levels of oxycodone, which is a painkiller, and he had he was, I think, .013 for alcohol, so above the legal limit, but not stumbling drunk. He was, pretty functional, and none of those individual quantities of any of those substances should have killed him, but the combination absolutely did.
And that's what we don't know, and that, of course, is the reason for the coalition to explain all it takes.
All it takes is one pill or one drink too much, which is what we believe happened in Joey's case.
Or the bad combo. And you wonder, we hear of, Hollywood stars passing away inexplicably. And is this what's happening there too? That maybe somebody can't sleep, and so they take something for that, and yet they were at a party, so they had something to drink, and they've done nothing wrong in the big picture. It was just this bad combination.
Well, and what we've come to understand is that people who take these medications in the earlier stages are definitely at more risk, because if they take more than they should, or somehow combine it with alcohol in particular, their bodies are not used to this medication. They themselves don't know what tolerance levels they have. So they may have a friend, in the case of a college student, who is using this stuff on a pretty routine basis, excuse me, in pretty high quantities, and think, well, gee, I'm big, I'm strong, as my son was. I can handle this. But everybody's body is unique and different, and it reacts to these medications differently. Some people have an absolute intolerance to the painkillers, and they won't do well even with one of them. I know parents who've lost their children with one pill of, say, Oxycontin or another painkiller, and alcohol wasn't even involved, and they have passed away. So
and
it is a very
too,
scary thing.
The morning of the day that Joey passed, he wasn't feeling so well, so he took something to make himself to feel a little bit better.
Well, we don't know that, Robin. We suspect, because of the timeline involved, the fact that he got through the whole night of partying and was actually up by, we think, about noon the next day, the day he actually died, and he was on Facebook with a friend. Momentarily, but he was alive. He had detoxed well enough so he was cognizant. He was able to communicate on Facebook, but he went back to bed. He died after that, sometime after that. We think maybe 2 to 3 hours later. Did he take another pill of some sort? We think he must have because of that particular, incident that we've come to know about.
Right, and maybe just to sort of self-medicate to.
Yeah, he's probably feeling cruddy. We're thinking, thinking, hey, I'll just sleep it off. He knew he was coming home the next day. Thought he was anyway. Yeah. So wanted to get a good night's sleep, a day's sleep, and sleep it off, and he'd be ready to go the next day. So I think he must have taken something else. Although reports we had from his girlfriend and others was that he really didn't have much left anymore, if anything. So I don't know. It's a mystery for us. That part is.
And and that's the thing that he probably didn't feel very well, but that he dies in his sleep. I mean that's like what Heath Ledger did. I mean nobody intended to have, and it wasn't this convulsive, dramatic death, but just simply I think I'll just sleep this off and not wake up.
Right. Well, the medical examiner's report basically explained that all of the substance in his body were central nervous system depressants, and so that's what happens when you depress all those different things that control your breathing and your heartbeat and all those things. That is what happens often. The kids go to sleep and they simply just don't wake up. They never knew what hit them. It's a peaceful death. You can be comforted in that, but boy, it's so avoidable, and what a shame to lose a life in that way.
Well, and that's why we did the show, and I'm happy to tell you I've been really aware of how much the media nationally has been now covering this. I think there was one show before we did ours, and then we did our show, and I maybe I'm just sensitized to it, but I see it all the time now. I see that they're really realizing the percentage now that it's this is now way worse than alcohol for college students. I mean, it's really become much more. People are becoming more aware of it. So
well, there have been some national statistics that have recently hit the news, and what I'm seeing, because I have a Google alert set up, and so every night at 11 p.m. I get a whole list of all the articles that have been written and have hit the papers during the day that have the words prescription drug abuse. I'm seeing articles being written all through the country in many, many areas. All of them very concerned about not just the national statistics, but what's happening in their own backyard. They're seeing deaths in their own communities, just like we have here. And I think people are getting scared. But unfortunately, we're not getting that information out yet enough to the college students and other middle school and high school students that need that information. They need to absolutely understand this is for real. It is really happening, and you too could pass away from this.
Right, not some urban legend. It can really happen. I think what you said earlier probably is it, that if a friend is doing well and takes some of these things and isn't suffering, that young people sometimes think we're telling them fibs and that we're just trying to keep them from doing something, and yet for their own personal body chemistry, that could be their last.
It could be. And the other thing that, I mean, I'm dealing with a death situation. I also now am interfacing with parents who have what appears to be lifelong addiction issues. And Robin, I don't know. It's horrible to lose a son, but I don't know if I could have handled years and years and years of rehab after rehab, and the expense and the agony, the mental agony of having a child that you love so much waste away their entire lives, their physical lives and mental lives. So, I mean, these parents are suffering big time too. And so yes, the kids can use it, but like in Joey's case, he had friends that were using these medications in high quantities. They were addicted, and he had talked to us about that fact, and it was really bothering him. So again, for him to take this road for that week, he did after he got those medications from the doctor.
Well, that's what I learned when we did our show with Dr. Gracer and with his patient Tiffany, and just showing that not dying from prescription drug abuse is no picnic either.
Absolutely not.
That's it. I mean, that every day she was telling us, and Dr. Gracer telling us about his own patients, that this is just, you just want to get through the day. That's kind of the goal.
And that's the patient, then you've got their families and friends around them, everybody. It impacts so many people.
How are you and your family doing now?
Oh gosh.
It's been not even a year.
I know, it's been almost 9 months. We're 3 days away from the 9-month mark. We're definitely better. We can get through the day without crying, which, we couldn't before initially. I will say that I think about Joey still almost constantly. He's always on my mind in some way or another, whether it's related to the organization we founded or him, as an individual. So there are triggers certainly that, will catch you unguarded, and you'll have a reaction to. Looking at pictures, family pictures is a sad thing, Thinking about the fact that I never really got a professional whole family picture. I'm a photographer, so I take family pictures all the time, but I don't have an absolutely beautiful family portrait of our family with Joey in it. So that hit me last week as being a really sad thing. So there's just so many reminders.
Right.
And then the times that you hear, and I'm too often hearing this about other children in our community or other places in the country passing away, it's like a dagger in the heart again, Kind of takes you back there, and you feel for the families, what they're going through from that first moment they hear on, and it's devastating.
Well, and you've been just a godsend to some of these parents. I know we lost another Tri-Valley, a young man from the Tri-Valley just a few months ago, and as I understand his story, he had broken his ankle and was taking, pain meds for that. That's certainly legitimate. And then had a Red Bull with vodka, which I hear college students do all the time.
Do all the time.
And that was it.
Well, and there's a little bit of a difference to the story. He actually had not been given pain meds by his doctor, but a friend gave them to him because he was kind of having a bad day. He had been standing up for a long time, and his ankle was bothering him. So his friend, who has, we believe, a problem, gave him the meds. And so it was a combination, once again, very similar to Joey's story, that got him too, from what we understand. Now, this is kind of unofficially the case. They don't have their toxicology report back, but I've talked to his mom and family, and I think they pretty much know what happened. I also believe they'll be really willing to talk about it, this particular family, which is unusual, by the way. I'm finding that a lot of families do not want to come out to the public about the issue, and unfortunately, that doesn't help spread this information as well as it could be.
And is it that they're worried for their own reputation, that they feel that they will be judged as parents or something?
Yes, and I will say that that does happen, I think. I believe that people do scrutinize you as individuals, as the family. They look at that child, that individual that had this happen to them, and they think, they somehow want to reconcile, I think, the fact that you guys were different, there must have been something that triggered this child. My kid would not do that, and so it's real easy to put on that other hat and the sanctimonious, attitude, and I have a problem with that. I know what our family was like. I know we were a good family. I know that Joey was a good kid, and yet he somehow got sucked in, and I truly believe that if it could happen to him, it could happen to anybody.
All right.
And so we are willing to speak about this. I don't care if people have a negative, impression of me. That's not my problem and not my fault. I want the information out there, and I'm willing to talk about this.
And you can save a life by doing so.
That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, we wouldn't want anybody else to go through
this other Tri-Valley, this young man given pain meds by his friend when he had broken his ankle. It's not like some dark figure lurking in an alleyway and you just tell your children.
He thought he was doing him a favor.
Yes,
he had him. Hey, here, this will help you.
You've got pain. Here's some pain med. I mean, it's not this ominous sort of situation. It's happening during, kind of in a party, or in this case,
a normal life situation. So,
and
that's what we need to do to make sure people know.
We're going to break for a moment, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about the dirty doctor that actually gave Joey the meds. There's some good updates there, and also what April has been doing with her National Coalition Against Prescription Drug Abuse. It's become really just the point of all of this, and how that's progressed. Don't go away. I'll be right back.